Now, I know most people, Grant, kind of see the finished product right now. Obviously, your YouTube channel is booming. You know, you're getting thousands of views no matter what you drop. You have people just following you left and right. And I know you've touched on this a little bit, you know, when you went ahead and was able to buy your Kia Stinger, which was obviously a big deal for you. But can you talk a little bit about some of the struggles that you had to overcome? And the way that I want you to kind of talk about it is also what you learned about yourself in what you did to actually overcome these type of struggles.
Okay. It's interesting. So right out of college, I got a freelance gig with NBC Sports Bay Area where Matt Mayoko works. I mean, they were paying me like $100 an article as I was 22 with no experience. So no struggles yet. And then within 6 months, I got the gig with the PD covering the Niners. So like my career was taking off. I wasn't getting paid a ton of money, but I got a credential covering the 49ers when I was 23.
Right.
So that was great. No struggles there. I think what happened was I really plateaued for a decade. Like I had no career growth after that moment at 23. And what surprised me was a lot of people resented me for getting that job. Like it was clear I didn't have much experience other than that little freelance gig I had for 6 months and me pissing people off on Warriors World forums and stuff, which I wasn't putting in my resume. So I think a lot of people were like, man, I had to work really hard to get I had to cover high schools and colleges, and you get a credential because you're Lowell's son. So I feel like all of a sudden the nepotism thing hit me hard. And the perception among fans, among other journalists, was that I didn't deserve that and I shouldn't be there. And I feel like every time there was an opportunity to get the next job, to get a full-time job, I was never considered, ever.
Wow.
So I felt like I had to fight against it. Was, I mean, being my dad's son, I mean, he taught me my whole, he put me on game for my entire childhood. And then he certainly did help me get my first couple freelance gigs. But then it all like came to a screeching halt, and I had to prove doubly. I had to work doubly hard and prove that I wasn't a nepotism person. And really, until I got this job with Sports Illustrated, that stuff was haunting me. Every time I had a hot take, people would say, "Who the hell are you to talk? You're just here because your dad, yada, yada, yada." That didn't go away until like last year.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was the big picture of, I think, why I was stuck. It's not his fault. It's just there was a perception in this market that I had done it all wrong. You know, I hadn't paid my dues. I was like everything that was wrong with journalism. And so I was really felt that if I was going to get to the next step and get a full-time job, because I was always a freelancer at the PD. If I was ever going to get a full-time job and like make enough to support a family, I was going to have to leave the market and go cover the Detroit Lions or something like that. But no one was interested in me in Detroit or anywhere else either. I mean, when The Athletic became a thing in 2017, I applied to all those, all of them. And they were like, they didn't even respond. So it was bleak times. And I'm not blaming my dad. I just felt like I had to prove myself doubly after that, you know, for a lot of
What
time.
did you learn? What did you learn about yourself through that? Like, obviously, a lot of people can kind of break under that pressure or keep pointing the finger. Oh, I'm not getting these opportunities because my dad, they don't see me as a good writer or something. I'm sure. So even though, you know, there was that aspect, I'm sure you probably could look at yourself and be like, I wasn't putting out the best content, or there was things about me that I could be better. But what did you learn about yourself?
I learned that I'm actually I'm very resilient. I'm extremely resilient. Like I got knocked down 20 times. I took so many losses. I've gone through the whole list before, but there's a whole lot of rejections. And it was like there was never going to be one that broke the camel's back. There was never going to be one too many. I was going to keep getting up, and this is what I was going to do. And I didn't realize that about myself. You know, I don't think that anyone would know that about themselves unless they've been in a situation where they've been told no so many times. And my dad, sometimes when it would happen, and it would happen every 6 months, I'd put myself out there. I wasn't just doing nothing at the PD, trying to just complacent. And when I would get rejected wherever, eventually the PD rejected me. My dad would just say, how do you do it? How do you keep getting, I couldn't do that. My dad only heard yes. He was going to be a professor. He went to Stanford, and then he just on a whim became like a movie critic. And then on a whim, he said something to Sports Illustrated. They published it. He ended up becoming a columnist. I mean, like, my dad's a prodigy. He's basically a prodigy. And I'm not. I am not. It took me 10 years of messing up before I wanted to be. But, everyone's got their path.
And then as far as like, what do you think that did as far as your ability? Because obviously you took on this new medium with the YouTube channel. And I know we've talked about it off camera before, talking about how your vision for it and why you saw an opportunity there. What do you think the stuff that you learned from your path has you been able to put into this YouTube channel?
I got a good answer for this. Okay, so like 2016, all I wanted was the Press Democrat to hire me to be their like local reporter. So like my dad was retiring. They were gonna hire someone, Phil Barber, to be the columnist. I just wanted them to give me a full-time job covering like local stuff in the 707. I would have been so happy to get a full-time job, like maybe $40,000 a year, if that, covering high schools in Sonoma. I would have been so happy because that means I would have, first of all, that would have been like double what I was making before, and I would have had benefits. And at a newspaper, you join a guild, which is like a union, you can't get fired. So it would have been some stability. And I probably would have worked at a newspaper making 40, maybe eventually getting to $60,000 a year and having that life. And that would have been a totally respectable life. My dad worked for a newspaper. I know that life. We lived that life growing up, newspaper life. I wanted it. I was dying to get a job that would pay me $40,000 a year. I couldn't get it. And because I couldn't get it, it forced me to, why don't I mess around with Periscope? I saw John Middlecoff. John Middlecoff put me up on this. He got screwed at 95.7. I don't know if people remember this. He used to have a show. Him and Guy Haberman had the show from like 10 to noon. It was great. They got screwed. I don't remember why. So Middlecoff had like 25,000 followers on Twitter. He's like, all right, take my show away. I'll do my show on Periscope. And I would watch it. And he would have like 250 people watching. I was like, damn, I should do this. Because I was pissed that radio stations weren't calling me. I was like, man, I'd be better than all these people. I'm good at this. Call me. So I was like, all right, I'll do Periscope. And I would do them after practice at training camp, like I'm about to be doing. Been doing it starting like 2017. And they were a big hit. And I realized that me on screen is much more likable than me in print for whatever reason. And I never would have pushed myself to try new things had I gotten that job for 40 grand covering high schools in 707. That's a great job. I'm just saying that's what led me to this stuff.
Wow. When did you start seeing the real explosion of your channel? Can you put like your finger on a moment that you realize like, yo, this is a thing right now?
Yeah, I want to say like 2019. I did it in 2017 after training camp practices. I would do them after games. They were always pretty good. I would always have 100, 150 people watching. And if there was a big event, there would be more. But then in 2019, it kept building year after year. And people were waiting. Like, I've always had some very good training camp coverage. And in 2019, there was a lot of, it just built. And I could watch who was watching my Periscopes. There's a feature on your Periscope app. And that was when I was really relentlessly rude to Dante Pettis. I'm sorry, Dante. That was childish. So his sister would watch every day. And I could see it. Because she must have been trying to watch for it and be like, this dude said this and that about. So I was like, okay, so players are watching, their siblings are watching. I saw that the mayor of Santa Clara was watching. Like, man, this is getting big. And Robert Saleh told me he watched. I interviewed John Lynch on it. It started getting big. And then what happened was I started doing, it was taken off in 2019. And I started doing like film breakdowns too. And then I started doing this weird thing where I was like, it's called Hot Mic. And I was announcing games. Didn't exactly take off, but I did it with my homie Ryan Sakamoto, who used to cover the team too. And he was like,
Beast Rider.
Yeah, the Beast Rider. So he's like, dude, I see you got hella people in these Periscopes. Sometimes I get like 400 people. I mean, you know how we do. You know how we do. He's like, man, I see you got hella people in there. I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. He's like, you got to find a way to monetize that, man. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, why don't you just send everyone to YouTube? You can monetize that. I was like, what are you talking about? That was like November 2019. And he just explained it to me. He's like, dude, you just sign up, the Google AdSense, did this, did that. And, like less than 2 years later, here we are. That's
amazing.
Ryan. Yeah.
What took you to then making it inclusive of everybody, right? You started the Cohn phone, you started bringing people on. Like, I think my first interaction, or at least my first getting put on you, was I used to do those grades of each game. And I somehow came across that on YouTube, and that's how I started following you. But then I remember maybe like a year, maybe like February of this year, you started Mondays with Vish. And that's something that I think has taken off as well. But that was kind of the first collaboration that I saw you do. But what caused you to start collaborating with people that you just met through online, I guess?
Well, Periscope actually implemented a like take call feature in 2019, and you couldn't get people's faces in there. But I was taking calls in 2019. That's where like a lot of people would call in from. Anyway, there were some vets that go back. So I've been doing it since then. That's where the Cohn phone came from. But my idea of involving other people, basically, like what happened was I got the job at SI, and I had to write like a couple articles a day, and they needed videos to go along with them. This was the rule here at SI.
Okay.
And so I would just post the videos on YouTube too, and people were watching them. So I was like, man, like, why don't I? And that's why I was like, why don't I post 3 videos a day and 4 videos a day? And it was working. So I was like, man, I need more content. And that's been like a bunch of people would ask me to come on their shows. And I would say yes to everyone. And the only like condition was send me the video afterwards so I can put it on my channel and promote everyone. And that worked. And I realized, like, instead of waiting for people to invite me on their shows, why don't I just invite people on my show? And that way I have enough videos to fill up. Because I was trying to go. I mean, for the last year, I posted about 17 videos a day just to get this thing going. And that's a lot. That's a lot of content. So I felt like I needed to bring people on. I was, with the way it worked with Vish in particular, was I had the show with my dad. I had the show, basically with my dad. The way that Vish came about was we were DMing each other. He's just super smart. I thought he was a burner account at first, but I just really enjoyed talking to him. And every time I talked to him, I learned. And at a certain point, I figured, like, just like with my dad's conversation, like, dude, these are too good. We got to make these public. And it was just an instant success. And so I felt like, just keep going with those, and it seemed to be a good format. It worked for the last year.
Now that you've gotten to the kind of level that you are, I feel like one thing that I love about you is you're low-key super competitive, right? And you don't like overly say it, but if people are paying attention, nuance some things that you say, like, you could tell you got the elephant memory, and you're remembering all these kind of things. So now looking back, you kind of talked about all these guys that overlooked you, all these guys that were just saying, oh, he's Lowell's son. How does it make you feel seeing, what you've created now, to where people are kind of trying to use you to gain clout now, and people are trying to work with you? You just did an interview with Jimmy Ward that national, ESPN and NFL, .com, all these people were taking. How does that make you feel? And, what is, I guess the level of, not validation, but maybe validation that you feel about, you doing it this
Vindication.
way? Vindication. There it is.
It feels great. Absolutely. Like, the tables have turned, and I it's not lost on me. Anytime people who didn't have the time of day for me want to work with me, it makes me smile. But at the same time, and I am petty, and I do hold grudges, and I don't forget. But at the same time, I feel like my nature, and I don't forget the nepotism charges that people put against me, and it pissed me off. But at the same time, there is something to it. I understand where people were coming from. I did have certain advantages. Of course I did. Everyone uses the advantages that they're given in life, and I use mine. But what I like to do is to pass it on, or try to, and to pay it forward. And I think I've done a good job of helping put other people on. Like, people can say what they want about how I got my start, but you can't say that I didn't help other people out. And if I was a nepotism creation, it ended up being for the best, because I've helped so many other people get on. Like Botan out in Hungary, he's now a full-time television analyst in Hungary, talking about NFL. That's a socialist country where people make like $1,500 a month. Now he's on TV. So that's a big deal for him. Jackhammer is now covering the team. He just got a credential.
Right.
He's going to be covering the team. So I like to think that I'm helping people. I don't want to be
for sure.
Like,
and I mean, I think one thing that if people are being objective about you. You know, the 49er, I guess, fans as a whole, you brought a lot of the community together. You know, so many of us are working together on different YouTube channels. And I just think like the level of impact that you have, just you talked about recently about you put out something about punt returners and then everybody on Twitter is talking about it. You know, all of those types of things, I think, stem from maybe, even if it was subconscious or consciously, understanding, you know, getting people involved. And I think that's one thing you talked about with me when we first started working is like, yo, I want to give people a platform. I can't pay you, but I can give you exposure, and what you do with it, you know, you can do with it. And it's great that it's, you know, turning out to help so many people and give so many people a platform to keep moving with.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like most people don't even realize that you can get into this industry, and there's no one trying to help you into it. There's a bunch of gatekeepers, and the only reason it dawned on me is because I grew up around it. And what I've realized is that, man, it's not as hard as you think to at least make this a lucrative hobby. And I'm trying to show people and bring them into the discussion. And I think it makes the entire fan experience better. I'd like to think that the 49ers realize that I'm empowering their fans and making them more engaged in their product. So even though they may not like all the things that me and you and people on my channel say, it's people talking about their team 24/7. It's a good thing.
I look at it like one thing when I was growing up, I always wanted to be on SportsCenter, right? That was my ultimate job, was being on SportsCenter. Because all you did was talk about sports. You get to watch all you do is watch the sports, talking about clips. You get to be funny in yourself. And, you know, that was just such a distant vision. Like, I didn't even know how to start that. And now I feel like we've created our own environment to be able to do that same thing and have people watch. It's amazing.